My mom didn't sit me down for a talk. She dragged my suitcase onto the driveway, popped it open, and started tossing my clothes into a plastic trash bin like she was clearing out yesterday's leftovers. Each piece landed with a hollow thud: jeans, sweaters, the laptop sleeve I'd saved up 3 months to buy. I stood there in my work shoes, still smelling like coffee and vanilla syrup from the brunch shift. My apron was folded in my bag. My hands were stained with espresso grounds. I had run the morning rush at our family's diner, managed the online orders, posted the daily special to Instagram, and responded to 17 customer messages before my shift even ended. Now I was watching my life pile up next to the recycling bin. "You're an adult, Harper." My mother didn't even look at me when she said it. Her voice was flat, rehearsed. "You don't deserve to be here anymore. Your brother's wife needs this room." Behind her, through the window of my childhood bedroom, I saw Madison's perfectly manicured hands touching the window frame. She tilted her head, already measuring it for ring lights, already imagining it as a studio, a backdrop, a stage for whatever wellness influencer fantasy she'd been selling to my family. No one asked where I was supposed to sleep that night. No one asked how I was supposed to finish my online marketing classes. No one asked who was going to manage the diner's social media, the delivery apps, the email campaigns that had tripled our weekend bookings in the past year. My brother Tyler walked past me carrying another box. When my laptop bag slipped and almost hit the concrete, I flinched. He rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic," he muttered. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't throw anything back. I made 3 quick trips, grabbing what I could fit into 2 duffel bags and shoving the overflow into the same trash bag my mom had been using. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and ordered an Uber. Streetlights flickered on one by one. The neighborhood looked the same as it always had: quiet, familiar, safe. But I wasn't safe here anymore. 2 weeks later, before sunrise, they were standing outside my apartment door with suitcases and swollen eyes, begging me to save them. And the first thing I did was reach for my phone and say, "Hi, I think there are some strangers causing trouble outside my apartment. If you think that sounds cold, wait until you hear what happened in between." I didn't cry on that driveway. I waited until I was in the back of the Uber, watching the house I grew up in shrink in the rearview mirror before I let myself feel anything. The driver didn't ask questions. I was grateful for that. My friend Nia opened the door to her tiny downtown apartment in an oversized hoodie, hair piled in a messy bun, eyes wide when she saw me standing there with 2 duffel bags and a trash bag full of clothes. She didn't ask what happened. "Take my bed," she said, stepping aside. "I'll take the couch. We'll figure it out tomorrow." The next morning, sunlight came through the cheap blinds in thin yellow lines. My back ached from sleeping wrong. My phone had 17 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize, probably my mom using someone else's phone. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and started making a list. Every account I had created for the diner lived under my email. Every password was mine. Every vendor relationship, every food blogger collaboration, every local influencer partnership, I had built it all from scratch while my mom insisted she was too old for that internet stuff. The website, the Instagram account with 8,000 followers, the TikTok page, the email newsletter, the Google business profile, the Yelp management, the delivery app integrations. All of it existed because I had spent 3 years learning, testing, failing, and rebuilding. My mom always called me the smart one. My brother Tyler had no idea what a Facebook ad manager even was. And Madison, she thought posting selfies with latte art was a marketing strategy. I spent 12 straight hours that day cleaning up the digital mess they didn't even know existed. I logged into every platform, removed their access, changed recovery emails, and downloaded copies of every campaign I'd ever run. I saved the analytics. I archived the reports. I documented everything I'd built. I didn't sabotage anything. I didn't delete their pages or lock them out of the business banking. I just took back what was mine. When Nia came home from her shift at Coastal Grind, the big, modern cafe downtown, she found me surrounded by notebooks and open browser tabs. She listened while I explained everything. The trash bin, the bedroom studio, my mother's voice saying, "You don't deserve to be here." Nia was furious on my behalf. "Blast them online," she said. "Let people know exactly how they treated you." I shook my head. "If I burn everything down, I look bitter and unstable. They'll just call me ungrateful." I closed my laptop. "I don't want to go to war on their level, Nia. I want them to feel what it's like when the person they treated like a backup plan simply disappears." She studied my face for a long moment. "You know," she said slowly, "Coastal Grind has been trying to grow their social media and events. You literally built an entire brand already." She paused. "Why waste that skill on people who threw your stuff into a trash can?" I didn't answer right away. But later that night, I pulled up Coastal Grind's website. Their branding was good, their coffee was better, and they were the main competition to my mom's diner. Part of me knew what working there would mean. I won't pretend the irony didn't cross my mind, building success for their biggest competitor while they scrambled to figure out what I used to do for free. But the business case was solid, and I'd learned to separate emotions from strategy. If I was going to start over, why not start right where it would hurt the most, without touching them directly? Coastal Grind didn't feel like work on the first day. It felt like stepping into a completely different universe. The space was all glass and plants and clean lines. Morning light spilled in from the street, illuminating rows of laptops on reclaimed wood tables. The air smelled like fresh pastries and properly pulled espresso, not burnt oil and desperation. Nia met me at the door, tied on her apron, and introduced me to Blake, the manager. He was tall, calm, with tired eyes that had seen every kind of cafe chaos. He'd already read my case study, the one I'd written in a single sitting, laying out exactly how I'd grown my mom's diner page from nothing to fully booked weekends. Blake asked me 3 questions. How did I handle negative reviews? How did I deal with no-show influencers? What did I do when a campaign failed last minute? I answered each one with specific examples, dollar amounts, results. He nodded. "We could really use someone like you." They started me as a marketing coordinator, part-time, with the promise of more hours if things went well. It was more than I'd ever gotten in writing at the diner. Within a week, I was planning our first Sunrise Sundays event, soft jazz, specialty pancakes, and a limited cold brew flight that would photograph beautifully. I pulled out every tool I'd once used for my family, but this time people actually appreciated the work. I built a content calendar. I optimized their profiles. I designed email campaigns that looked professional instead of thrown together at midnight. And because I knew the neighborhood, I recognized usernames in the comments. Regulars who used to come to my mom's place started leaving little messages. "Wait, are you the Harper from Harbor Sunrise Diner? You're killing it here." One by one, they started showing up, then staying, then bringing friends. I never told them not to go back to the diner. I just made sure that when they had to choose between a place that ignored their messages and a place that remembered their name and favorite order, the choice felt obvious. While my new life was shifting into something real, my old house barely texted me once. The one time my mom reached out, it was blunt. "What is the password to the diner's Instagram? I can't get in. Madison wants to post." I stared at the screen for a full minute. She didn't ask where I was staying. She didn't ask if I had a job, just access, just control, just utility. I typed back, "Those accounts are under my name and my business. You can make your own." Then I blocked her number. A few days later, Nia came back from a grocery run, grinning like she'd won the lottery. "You're not going to believe this," she said, dropping onto the couch. She'd run into one of our old neighbors near the house. According to them, Madison was already planning a massive makeover. She wanted to rip out the curtains in my old bedroom, repaint everything white, add a full wall mirror, and build a custom vanity with built-in ring lights so she could film skincare routines and morning vlogs. The contractor's quote, $10,000. My mom hesitated for maybe half a second. Then Tyler stepped in and told her it was an investment, that Madison's followers would bring in more customers, that the diner needed to look modern if it wanted to survive. Madison had maybe a few hundred followers. She thought that meant she was an influencer. But my mom, who never understood how any of it actually worked, believed the fantasy. They pulled money from the diner's savings. The same savings I had helped build by negotiating better supplier deals and running campaigns that actually converted. And it didn't stop there. Madison decided the bedroom wasn't enough. She wanted a full wellness spa in the garage, a sauna, a soaking tub, a massage table, a yoga corner with a separate entrance so clients could come in without walking through the house. The second contractor's quote, $15,000, not including furniture and daycare. I almost laughed when Nia told me. I pictured them arguing over tile samples and ring light placements while I was pitching a collaboration with a local coffee roaster that would actually bring foot traffic through the door. The first Sunrise Sunday sold out of our specialty cold brew before noon. People tagged us in their stories. Blake watched the numbers climb and shook his head in disbelief. "You did all of this at your mom's place by yourself?" he asked. I shrugged, more or less. He smiled. "Then this is just the beginning. The thing about money problems is they don't stay quiet for long. You can paint over cracks and light candles to hide the smell, but eventually everyone notices something is rotting." It started with small comments from customers at Coastal Grind. People would mention in passing that they'd tried to support the diner, but the wait times were ridiculous now. Or that they'd ordered online and their food showed up cold. One woman said she'd messaged about a wrong order, and whoever replied had basically told her to calm down and stop being entitled. I didn't have to guess who wrote that. Madison treated customer complaints like personal attacks on her brand. While she was arguing in Instagram DMs, the bills kept stacking up at home. The first major hit came when my mom went back to the bank to request another loan. The bedroom renovation had gone over budget. The garage spa project was bleeding money. Tyler had been out of work longer than he'd admitted, because Madison kept showing up at his workplace, filming loudly, rearranging displays for her video backgrounds, and complaining to customers on live streams about how expensive everything was. His boss gave him one warning. When Madison showed up again and started arguing with a coworker on camera about why the showroom wouldn't give her a collab discount, they pulled Tyler into the office and let him go. Suddenly, the man who told me to stop being dramatic when my laptop almost hit the concrete was unemployed, living off whatever was left in the diner account and my mom's high-interest loan. My mom walked into that bank expecting mercy. She walked out with a rejection letter. Too much existing debt, not enough collateral, income unstable. The interest on the loan she already had was climbing. Late fees were kicking in, and Madison, completely oblivious to reality, had already ordered half the spa furniture on a credit card my mom had co-signed. A gleaming chrome cart for skincare products. A towel warmer. Fake plants and minimalist wall art. Glass jars for bath salts. She justified every purchase as, for the business, but nothing ever made it into actual paying customers' hands. She filmed unboxing videos in spaces still full of construction dust. Tyler, desperate to feel useful again, backed her on every swipe. "We just need to invest a little more," he kept saying. "It'll pay off once everything's finished." Meanwhile, the diner was hemorrhaging reputation. Without a consistent social media strategy or decent customer service, slow days stayed empty. Food took longer because they tried to cut labor costs. Deliveries got delayed because Madison tried to manage routes herself around her filming schedule. One of our old regulars, Mr. Jacobs, a retired teacher who'd been eating pancakes there since before I was born, showed up at Coastal Grind one morning. He sat at a corner table, ordered coffee and a breakfast sandwich, then looked at me with something like guilt in his eyes. "I tried, Harper," he said quietly. "I really tried to stick with your mom. But that girl she has working there, the one always filming herself, she made me feel like an inconvenience for asking for my eggs to be reheated." His voice cracked on that last word. I refilled his cup and thanked him for being honest. I knew he wasn't the only one who felt that way. When I finally broke down and checked the diner's page from a burner account one night, the change was brutal. Grainy photos, messy captions full of typos, defensive replies to negative reviews. The cozy neighborhood spot I'd spent years polishing into something people were proud to tag now looked like a parody of itself. While their digital presence crumbled, things inside the house were getting worse. Arguments that used to end behind closed doors now spilled into the street. Neighbors who once sat on their porches chatting in the evenings now closed their doors and turned up the TV. The police were called at least twice when Madison went on loud rants about money and loyalty and how no one appreciated her sacrifice. The same woman who'd looked at my bedroom and seen nothing but a blank canvas for her videos was now surrounded by half-finished projects and unpaid invoices. My mom, who had once prided herself on being a good neighbor and solid small business owner, was becoming the woman people whispered about and avoided. And in the middle of all that chaos, she tried one more time to use me as a tool. She knew my numbers were blocked, so she cornered Nia outside Coastal Grind after a shift one night. She waited like a customer but didn't come inside. She asked how I was doing. When Nia said I was fine and working hard, my mom didn't ask where I was living or if I needed anything. She went straight to business. "The diner's going through a rough patch," she said. "Madison's still learning social media. If Harper just comes back to help with the online stuff for a while, she can stay in the guest room until things settle." Nia told me later that my mom said it so casually, like she was offering me a favor. That same casual assumption that I would come running back to the house where my belongings had been dumped into a trash bin, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't told me I didn't deserve to be there. Nia told her no. She told my mom that I was building something new, that I had a job where people respected me, that I wasn't coming back. According to Nia, my mom's expression went cold then. "She's being dramatic," she said. "Family forgives and moves on." She shouldn't hold a grudge over one bad day. When Nia told me all of this, I didn't cry or scream. I just felt a kind of exhausted clarity settle over me. My mom didn't miss me. She missed what I had done for her. She didn't want her daughter back. She wanted her unpaid social media manager back. I wasn't a person to her. I was a function, and I was done performing. While my family drowned in debt, my numbers soared. Our app downloads were growing. Our events were selling out. Blake pulled me aside after our second sold-out Sunrise Sunday and showed me the revenue charts. "Whatever you need to keep this going, you've got it," he said. "Investments in better equipment. Higher ad spend. Expanded hours, all on the table." The contrast made me dizzy. On one side of town, my family was drowning in debt they took on to chase a fantasy. On the other side, people were finally paying me to do the work I'd been doing for free since I was a teenager. Then Blake mentioned something that changed everything. "We've been talking about expansion," he said casually one afternoon. "A second location, somewhere with good foot traffic, parking, visibility." He looked at me. "You know this neighborhood better than anyone. Where do you think we should look?" I didn't hesitate. "There's a corner spot near the harbor," I said. "Good parking, morning sun, local foot traffic, history in the area." I didn't mention it was where I grew up. I didn't say it was where I'd learned to make coffee and balance trays and smile at strangers who barely tipped. I just laid out the numbers, the demographics, the potential. Part of me knew exactly what recommending that location would mean. I'd be lying if I said the irony didn't feel like poetic justice. But the business case was solid, better than solid. And if there was one thing I'd learned from being thrown away like trash, it was that sentiment doesn't pay the bills. Blake did his own research. The landlord confirmed what I already knew. The current tenant was months behind on rent and struggling. He saw an opportunity to replace a failing business with a thriving one. Business is cold like that. By the time the eviction notice went up on my mom's diner door, the lease with Coastal Grind was already being drafted. The notice was a plain white sheet of paper with black printing. The kind landlords use when they're done asking nicely. According to what I heard through the neighborhood grapevine, my mom tried to pretend it was a misunderstanding at first. Said the check must have gotten lost in the mail. Said she'd sort it out by the end of the week. But there was nothing left to sort. The loan payments, the renovation bills, the credit cards, the late rent, it all came due at once. The bank wouldn't extend anything. The contractor wanted his money. And the landlord, a man who'd owned half that strip of shops for as long as I could remember, had already lined up a new tenant. The house I grew up in had a second mortgage hanging over it. Between the bedroom studio that never launched and the unfinished garage spa, there was almost no equity left. Tyler and Madison were fighting daily now. She screamed about how he'd ruined her chance to be a wellness influencer. He yelled back about her spending, her attitude, the way she talked to my mom. None of them mentioned me until it was time to assign blame for the online disaster. Then suddenly everything was my fault again, if Harper hadn't taken everything with her. If Harper would just come back, if Harper cared about family at all. They finally understood what I'd controlled, but understanding came too late. When the final deadline on the lease passed and the landlord told my mom she had to be out by the end of the week, reality snapped into focus for all of them. The diner was gone. The house, with no steady income to support its mortgage and mounting bills, was next. They sold what they could: furniture, appliances, the sad, unused vanity lights from my old bedroom. Tyler picked up shifts as a delivery driver for whatever app would take him. Madison tried to pivot her content to raw, honest struggle, but her small audience wasn't interested in watching her complain from a cramped motel room. And I, standing in the back office of Coastal Grind, watching our revenue charts climb while hearing through whispers that my childhood home was collapsing, felt something I'm not proud of and won't sugarcoat. Relief, not because they were suffering, but because for once, their choices were finally catching up to them instead of landing on my shoulders to fix. I had spent years being the invisible net under their bad decisions. Now I had stepped aside, and gravity was doing the rest. It was 2 weeks after the eviction notice, just before dawn on a Sunday. I'd fallen asleep on Nia's couch after working late on the launch campaign for the new Coastal Grind location. My laptop was still warm on the coffee table. My phone was charging on the floor. At first, I thought the pounding noise was a dream. Then I realized someone was leaning on my doorbell and hitting the door with their fist over and over. Adrenaline spiked through me. I grabbed my phone, crept toward the door, and checked the peephole. My mom stood there, hair messy, eyes swollen and red-rimmed, wearing a jacket I'd never seen before, the kind of cheap, thin thing you buy at a gas station when you didn't plan to be out in the cold. Tyler stood next to her, shoulders slumped, dark circles carved under his eyes like bruises. Madison hovered slightly behind them, arms wrapped around herself in a faded sweatshirt, mascara streaking down her cheeks. There were suitcases at their feet, plastic bags bulging with clothes. Everything they had left piled on my doorstep like an offering. I didn't open the door. I slid the chain lock into place, even though the deadbolt was already engaged, and cracked it just enough to hear my mom's voice. "Harper, please." She sounded like the woman who used to make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs when I was 6. "We need to talk. We made mistakes. Just let us in so we can explain." "We were wrong, okay?" Tyler added, his voice breaking. "We were wrong about you. We lost the diner. We lost the house. We don't have anywhere else to go." Madison stayed quiet, but tears kept falling, cutting clean lines through her foundation. It would be a lie to say I felt nothing. My stomach twisted. My chest ached. My pulse hammered in my ears so loud I thought they might hear it through the door. These were still my blood. Still, the people I'd spent most of my life serving in one way or another. But I also remembered the trash bin. The sound of my suitcase hitting the driveway. The sentence that had carved itself into my bones, "You don't deserve to be here." I thought about how many times they'd reached out, only when they wanted something fixed, something marketed, something saved. Not once had any of them asked if I had a bed. Not once had they apologized without attaching a request to it. The pounding got louder. My mom's voice cracked. "Please, Harper, the landlord took everything. We found out Coastal Grind is moving in there." Her eyes searched mine through the narrow gap. "Is that where you're working now? Did you know about this?" I took a breath, stepped back from the door. My finger hovered over the emergency number for a long moment. These were the people who raised me. The people who taught me how to crack eggs and fold napkins and smile through difficult shifts. And I was about to call the police on them. But they'd also taught me that I was disposable. that my work only mattered when it benefited them. That love came with conditions I could never quite meet. I pressed the button. When the dispatcher picked up, my voice came out calm and flat. "Hi. There are some people outside my apartment building who won't stop banging on my door. They've been shouting and causing a disturbance. I don't know them. I'm alone and I don't feel safe. Can you send someone to check it out?" The words tasted bitter, but they weren't a lie, not really. I hung up and went back to the door. My mom was still begging, her words starting to blur together. "Harper, we need a place to stay, just for a little while. You can help us get the diner back. You know how to talk to people, how to fix things. You're good at this. You always have been." Tyler finally looked straight at me through the gap. "You don't understand what it's like out there," he said. "Motels, side jobs, everything is so expensive. We're family. You're supposed to help." That was the moment something in me went very still. I opened the door just enough for them to see my face clearly. The chain stayed across. "You're right about one thing," I said. "I am good at this. I'm very good at fixing things. That's why Coastal Grind hired me. That's why, starting next month, there's going to be a brand new cafe in the exact spot where you threw my future in the trash." My mom blinked. "What are you talking about?" "The landlord needed a new tenant," I continued. "He wanted someone stable, someone growing." Blake asked my opinion on locations. I held her eyes. "I told him your spot was perfect. We signed the lease 2 weeks ago. We're gutting the inside and turning it into something better." Madison's face twisted. "You stole our business," she snapped. "You ruined us." I shook my head slowly. "No, you did that when you spent more on ring lights than on payroll. You did that when you fired good people and insulted customers. All I did was stop holding your world together for free." Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, getting closer. My mom sagged against the doorframe, suddenly looking older than 50. "I never wanted this," she whispered. "I just wanted you kids to have more than I did." "Then you should have started," I said quietly, "by not throwing away the one person who already knew how to build something." The flashing lights turned the hallway blue and red. An officer stepped out of the elevator a moment later, hand resting lightly on his belt, expression professional. "Is everything okay here, ma'am?" I opened the door just enough for him to see my mom and siblings, then stepped back. "They've been here banging and yelling for a while," I said. "I asked them to leave. I don't feel safe letting them in." My mom stared at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. The officer kept it simple. Asked them to move along. Reminded them they couldn't loiter in the hallway or disturb other tenants. There was no dramatic arrest. No handcuffs. Just a quiet, humiliating walk back down the corridor with their suitcases and plastic bags dragging behind them. As they shuffled past me, my mom reached out, fingers brushing the doorframe where my hand had been. "I'm still your mother," she said, voice breaking. I didn't flinch. "You told me I didn't deserve a place in your home," I said, meeting her eyes one last time. "Now you know what it feels like to be on the other side of that door." Then I closed it, slid the chain back, and leaned against the wood, pulse still racing. I had chosen myself over the people who thought I would always choose them, no matter how hard they pushed me away. And for the first time in my life, that choice felt right. The grand opening of the new Coastal Grind felt like walking into an alternate timeline. The building was the same one I'd spent half my childhood in, but everything inside was different. The greasy carpet was gone, replaced by polished concrete and warm wood. The old sticky booths had been swapped for bright tables and soft chairs. Plants filled the corners. Soft music played. The smell of good coffee and fresh pastries replaced burnt oil and desperation. The only thing that stayed the same was the way morning light poured in through the front windows. I stood near the entrance with my Coastal Grind badge clipped to my shirt and a tablet in my hand, watching people file in. Some were curious. Some were already loyal to our first spot. A few faces from my old life blinked when they saw me. "Isn't this where your mom's diner used to be?" One of them asked gently. I smiled. "It is. Things change. Life moves on. And sometimes it moves in the direction it should have gone in the first place." Blake gave a short speech about small businesses and community and growth. When he thanked me publicly for leading the strategy, people clapped. My face went hot. There was a time when I would have shrunk under that attention, worried my mom would roll her eyes or tell me not to get a big head. This time, I let myself stand there and take in the sound. I found out later that Tyler had picked up a job loading trucks in a warehouse on the edge of town. Madison left a few weeks after the motel episode, following a guy with a bigger paycheck to another state. Her social media went quiet after one final post about fresh starts that got fewer likes than she'd hoped for. My mom ended up in a small apartment a few miles away, the kind with thin walls and a balcony just big enough for a folding chair. She got a job as a line cook at a chain restaurant, flipping burgers under someone else's clock. Nia spotted her at a bus stop once, uniform in a plastic bag, staring at her phone like she was hoping for a miracle message. There were moments, sitting in the back office after close, when I thought about calling her. Just to hear her voice, just to see if maybe losing everything had humbled her enough to listen instead of accuse. But every time I came close, the memory of that trash bin rose up like a wall. Love without respect is just a softer kind of control, and I was done being controlled. Instead of pouring energy into fixing people who didn't see my worth, I poured it into community. We hosted resume workshops for teens who wanted their first job. We ran donation drives for shelters. I started mentoring a couple of younger baristas who were interested in marketing, teaching them how to run campaigns and read analytics so no one could dismiss them the way my family had dismissed me. People love to say blood is thicker than water, like that means you owe your family unconditional loyalty no matter how badly they treat you. But here's what I learned the hard way. Family isn't just who you share a last name with. It's the people who show up when you're standing in a doorway with 2 trash bags and nowhere to go. It's the friend who gives you her bed without making you beg. It's the boss who reads your ideas and sees potential instead of free labor. And it's you, choosing every day to protect the version of yourself that survived being told you weren't enough. I'm not saying you should cut off everyone the first time they hurt you. I'm saying pay attention to patterns. Pay attention to who only calls when they need you to fix something. Pay attention to who throws your future in the trash and then expects you to rescue theirs. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away without burning anything down and let people find out what their life looks like without you holding it together. The real revenge wasn't the lease or the eviction or even watching my family face the consequences of their choices. The real revenge was the life I built that didn't need their approval to be real. If you've ever been told you were a burden or that you didn't deserve to be where you were, ask yourself this. What would happen if you stopped apologizing for existing and started building something that was yours, even if it meant leaving them behind? If you have your own story about family taking you for granted until it was too late, share it in the comments below. Someone out there needs to know they're not the only one standing on a driveway with their whole life in a trash bag, about to choose themselves for the first time. Hit subscribe, protect your peace. And remember, your value isn't determined by people who can't see past their own reflection.